Now let's talk about understanding containers. Now what I'm going to do as I move through the course here is I want to show you different pieces of functionality inside the SQL Data Tools Integration Services environment so that you will be able to answer questions on the exam and then use these as you build your own solutions for loading and maintaining your data warehouse. And this will go far past data warehouses. You'll find all kinds of uses for this tool when you're working with databases, okay? But what I want to show you here is the concept of containers. And to make this kind of apparent to you, I've doctored, you remember our little simple SSIS example? In that example, we had a single data flow, and I just copied some data from one of the tables and moved it down into a flat file on the desktop. And that was all there was to it. I created a comma-separated flat file, text file, on the desktop. What I've done here is I've doctored this up a little bit and I've created two data flows. Notice there's a data flow task and a data flow task 1. And task 1 takes a different table out there and dumps it down to a text file. So just go back and watch the simple SSIS example. I've just done that twice in two different data flows. Now when I have two data flows, you'll notice that out here on the control flow tab, I can see each data flow task. Now what I would really do in the real world is right click this and go down to rename, and I would rename that data, like, load table A, and then I would come over here and right click and rename this one and call it load table B, or whatever's going on. Okay, but I can give these things very intuitive names, and then when I go to the data flow tasks, you can see up here at the top I can choose which data flow task I'm working on. And again, back to that thing we talked about in a separate video on data and control flow, you can see this clearly is control flow out here as far as which one of these tasks are going to run first or simultaneously, and then data flow is each one of these individual tasks where the data is actually moving somewhere. All right, and so it depends on which one I look at. So let's talk now about what we came here for, right? This is a video about containers. All right, don't worry, I didn't forget. All right, well, what I want to show you, we're going to use containers to help control the flow out here and to help us understand logically what's going on. Well, what I want to do first here is I'm going to run this package, and I want you to notice that these two data tasks or data flow tasks are going to run together at the same time, what we would call in parallel. Now this will be pretty quick, but watch, they're both going to pop up. Notice they're both running, and then when they completed almost the same time, but they ran in parallel at the same time. Well, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not. How can I control that? Well, the easiest way for me to control that is, notice right here, a sequence container. So all I'll do is drag a sequence container on, okay, and then I will drag load table A into this sequence container. All right, and then I'll move it up here. Whoop, I got to drop that thing in there. Get in there. Okay, there we go. Okay, then I'm going to drag another sequence container on, and I will grab load table B, and I will drop this into that sequence container. Now notice this sequence container has a constraint. We'll talk more about those later, but I will drag it down to here, and you know what's going to happen this time when I run it, right? I am now going to control the flow out here, and you will see these things run individually. And so the first one will have to complete, and complete successfully. Notice it's going to run, then the other one runs. Okay, hope you notice the difference. This ran, turned green, then this one ran and turned green. All right, and so that is a real good example of controlling the flow, but not necessarily controlling the data flow. Okay, this controlled the flow of the package, and then our individual data flow tasks control the actual flow of data. Okay, now that becomes kind of a foundational aspect, because as you build these packages, they can get very, very complex, because you have to pull data from here, stage it here, do something to it, turn it a different color here, scrub it for something here, and then go on and do something else. And all this cannot run in parallel. Keep in mind, you can't violate the basic rules of databases here. You're still going to lock resources and tables. Some things need to be finished first, second, third, and so forth. And this is one of the ways we're going to take care of that. Now, let me just mention here, before I leave you, there's a loop container. It does the same thing, but a loop container, notice whatever I have in here, for example, if I took load table A, okay, and dropped it in here, all right, what that's going to tell me is if I right click on this and edit it, I can loop through whatever's going on here, okay? So I can set my initial expression, what I'm evaluating, and then whatever I'm assigning. Then I can go out here and actually write expressions out here for whatever I want to do, okay? So that is going to let me loop through things and handle them. If I'm getting a row set back here, say 8 rows, and I want to loop through all 8 rows and do something, I can put it in a loop container, okay? Then a close cousin to the loop container, I'm going to right click this and delete it. Close cousin to that loop container is going to be the for each loop container, and that's going to be a for each type loop, okay? Rather than one controlled by a variable, it's just as long as it's finding data. All right, but these sequence containers especially let us control the flow of our package by putting things together and then setting them as a unit as having to succeed or fail to branch the program. So that's all we're going to do with sequence containers. That's what we're going to use with any kind of containers, group things together for functionality and control the steps and the order that they happen in.